All right, Steph. Let me tell you what watching the Leafs last week informed me of. I think there's three things in life that are absolutely certain: death, taxes, and Auston Matthews absolutely lighting up the lamp on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
Man, to see what he did last week was absolutely insane. 4 goals in his last 2 games, and over the last 4 games, he's added 6 assists. I mean, what the guy's doing is absolutely unbelievable.
He's a monster.
He's a monster. And I mean, when we talk about the age-old debate about who the best players in the league are, it's long been decided that Connor and Nathan hold a league of their own and 1 and 2 cemented.
Sure.
But, for the longest time, Leon Draisaitl was thought to be number 3. And I'm wondering if after what we're seeing this year from Auston and also from Leon, if the debate can finally be made that Auston has made his way into the top 3.
I've been making that debate for more than this season.
Yeah, our friend group has heard us argue about this for a very long time.
I've always thought he's been better than Leon, honestly. I don't know. I think there's more of a spotlight here, so you notice the holes in his game more just because there's more coverage. Personally,
that's true.
That's what I've noticed. I think they have similar defensive flaws, but I'll get into it later. Matthews has been actually really good defensively this year.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I argued for Leon. I thought Leon was a better player than Auston, and that's even with my Leafs bias. But I think now the argument is a little bit less clear than I thought it was, and I think it'd be good to talk a little bit here about, from an offensive and defensive perspective, which player we think is actually better.
Matthews in both.
You think?
Yeah.
That's a bold statement. Okay, start me off a little bit offensively, what you think.
Well, offensively, Matthews has been the best 5-on-5 goal scorer in the league since he came in. Since he was a rookie. Better than Ovi.
Better than Ovi.
The stats prove that. I don't have the stats in front of me, but that's a graphic everybody's seen. Posted on Hockey Night in Canada. He has the most. I think it's either the most 5-on-5 goals or at the greatest rate. So per 60 minutes 5-on-5, he's the best goal scorer, which is crazy. And I'd rather a guy who be really good on 5-on-5 than be even better on the power play. Where I'm heading with this.
I agree. I mean, okay, let's break it down a little bit. Auston and Leon have pretty similar games played. I think they're 3 games separated from each other. Yeah. Auston in his career scored over 40 goals or on pace to score 40 almost every year he's played, which is pretty unbelievable, especially because he did that as a rookie too.
Yeah.
Leon's a little bit different. He's only scored over 40 twice. He's never won a Rocket Richard. However, he has scored more goals than Auston, just slightly more.
But I think Leon's played one more season because they got drafted a year apart or 2 years apart.
You're correct. What I'm looking at here is Auston and Leon have almost very similar career goals scored in total.
Oh, I understand.
Yes. Okay. I apologize.
So that's a testament to Matthews.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the kicker: Auston Matthews has only scored a quarter of his goals on the power play. So, like you said, 5-on-5, he's an absolute beast.
Yeah.
Whereas Leon Draisaitl scores about 35% of his goals on the power play.
His goals?
Yeah. And that's a star-studded power play with probably the best playmaker in the league, and you could argue of all time if he continues to be what he's doing.
Up, yeah. They've had the best power play in the league, for the past few seasons, and that's not to take away from Draisaitl. It's just they're really good on the power play, and he gets a lot of points there. So does Matthews. So this year Draisaitl's gotten 40% of his points on the power play. Matthews is 37% of his points. So it's pretty much even. Mm-hmm. Draisaitl will almost always get more points than Matthews because he's a better passer than Matthews, and he's a better playmaker. That's 100% true. But this might piss Oilers fans off, but I think that's where the only area where he's clearly better than Matthews. Even just the eye test. Matthews is a more powerful and a better skater in my opinion. Mm-hmm. He's Draisaitl has one of the best shots in the league, but I think Matthews has arguably the best shot in the league.
True. So going back to what you said before, the one place that Leon is better than Auston, to give him credit, is points. Auston has never had 100 points in his career. No. The most he's ever had was 80. But to be honest, he's on pace for 107 this year. Leon, on the other hand, has had 100 points twice in his career.
Yeah, he's
And he's on pace for like 130 at this point.
Yeah, they put up the points, but also Draisaitl averages like 25 minutes a night.
True.
Which is ridiculous. He also plays power. He also plays penalty kill, which is a contributor to that. Auston doesn't really kill penalties ever. But if you get an extra like 4 minutes on a guy a game, you're going to, does that up?
Yeah, I mean, overall, the knocks against Leon are, he scores a lot of his goals and assists on the power play, number one. And number two is he plays a lot more time than people think with Connor McDavid. I have a stat here that said in 49 games that Leon... No, in his career, that Leon has played without Connor McDavid, he only has 16 goals. And I mean, that's almost a goal every other game, but it's definitely not on pace for what he's done in his career from that perspective. So one can make the argument that, while Leon Draisaitl is phenomenal, without McDavid, he kind of doesn't look as good as Auston does 5-on-5, especially this year because Auston's not playing with a lot of stars, right?
Well, yeah, 5-on-5, I don't think it's really a question. I have, like last episode, I brought up like the advanced stats for like the Rangers and why I thought that painted a picture that maybe they weren't as good as their results suggest, and that it was just Shesterkin making crazy saves every game for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to use those same stats. Corsi for percentage, which is Corsi for compared to your Corsi against. Corsi is just a counter, essentially, that counts shot attempts. So shot attempts for against the team and then against you when you're on the ice. Okay. Fenwick is the same, but for shots that actually hit the net. Right. So Matthews has a significantly better Corsi for and Fenwick for percentage than Draisaitl this year. And then even if you want to like talk about like scoring opportunities, not just shots, because those are, not always scoring chances, high danger chances, that same ratio of 4-2 against, Matthews is a lot better than Draisaitl. So he's impacting better on both sides of the puck this season at 5-on-5, which I think is the most important. You play most of the game at 5-on-5. I'd rather have a guy who can dominate at 5-on-5 and is still unbelievable on the power play than someone who's still really, really good, but just not as good. I think Matthews is a better player. Yeah,
I mean, for a while, Auston had thought to be not as good as Leon because while Leon suffered on the defensive side, he was unbelievable up front. Yeah. And now what we're saying is that distinction actually isn't as clear anymore.
It's not. It's reversed. Like the numbers say Matthews is better on both sides of the puck. Like Draisaitl's, like most stars in the league, let's be honest, most superstars, like maybe barring like Patrice Bergeron, are like, they kind of don't play defense.
They're pretty one-sided.
Yeah, because they know that they they make their money scoring goals, which is fair. But that was a knock against Matthews that I don't think was like fairly placed against other players. And now he's like flipping the script. He's been a really good two-way center this year.
Yeah, just from a non-stats perspective, I remember early on in his career in that first year when he scored 40, I talked Auston up so much. I loved him with all my heart. But the one thing I always said is he looked pretty opportunistic in the sense that he knew where to be on the ice.
Which is a skill too.
Which is definitely a skill. Yeah. I agree with that. But defensively, he seemed like a little bit of a liability early on in his career.
I think that's fair.
It's true. But now watching him, I try to watch as many Leaf games as I can, and especially the ones that I saw against New Jersey this week, both of them. Man, the guy in the defensive zone is absolutely tenacious.
Yeah, he's everywhere now. He's not afraid to use his body either. Like he's a huge dude, but he only feels like he only figured it out over the past couple of years that he's bigger than most guys. Yeah, and stronger.
It's like little things too. He's always on the right side of the puck in the defensive zone. Like as a center, being on the more defensive side of the puck is really important. Doesn't lose battles down low, especially on the hash marks. He supports really well. One of the things I've seen is that even with his two new look wingers, whenever a puck comes out for a breakout on the defensive side, he's always supporting the winger, and the puck always seems to get out. And I mean, now that I think about it too, Auston just plays an inherently more important position. I know Leon gets time at center, but
yeah, he plays both.
But I mean, later on in the games when he plays with McDavid, he's playing on the wing.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, the case can be made that Auston is not only the better player now, but definitely more important to a team as well.
Yeah, well, because he plays center full time. I think if Leon wasn't on the Edmonton Oilers, or maybe two other teams like the Leafs and the Avalanche, he'd be like the first line center. He wouldn't play a wing ever.
For sure. That's fair.
But that's the reality though.
That's right? One thing we'll never know. Okay, so I want a hot take from you here.
Okay.
1 to 5, I want you to name the best players in the league.
Okay, so McDavid's at 1. I think McKinnon's at 2, but the gap's not as big as people think between him and Matthews, who I have at 3.
Okay.
Probably have Draisaitl at 4.
Uh-huh.
And then it's a kind of a toss-up. Like last episode, I was struggling to pick 5 for the Stanley Cup favorites. It's like there's so many good guys. You can say Crosby. You can say Ovi.
Okay.
Kucherov. Probably if he's healthy, I'd probably put Kucherov above both of them.
Kucherov.
Like he's unreal. He's just unfortunately been hurt the past 2 seasons. But when he came back in those playoffs last year, playing at over a point a game after not playing a whole regular season, like the guy's an animal.
Yeah, he's an animal. I mean, so for me, for the longest time, it was McDavid, McKinnon, Leon, Matthews. But now I think it's McDavid, McKinnon. At 3A is Matthews and at 3B is Leon.
Okay.
I think it's really close.
It's definitely really close. Just got to give my boy some love.
I agree.
It was 5 for you.
Are we ready to have the conversation that even as a Leafs fan, Brad Marchand might be a number 5?
Ooh, yeah, he might be. He's like kind of somehow still underrated because he doesn't get these conversations. But yeah, he's become
multiple 100-point seasons.
Yeah.
Seems to score 30, 35 goals every year. He's a guy that you want in the playoffs because he's so tenacious and gritty, isn't afraid to lay the body, rarely gets hurt, which is very important.
Yeah, just a rat.
Yeah, and I mean, as Leafs fans, it's kind of tough to give love to a Boston Bruin.
Yeah, I don't know if people are ready for the conversation if he's a Hall of Famer or not. We can have that another day, but if he keeps this up, he probably will be.
Yeah, I mean, the only knock against Brad Marchand is that he only started to become an elite player a little bit later on in his career, which is kind of cool in its own right. But what he's been doing over the last 4 or 5 years is, in my opinion, top 5 material.
Yeah, and speaking of guys who became elite as they progressed, we're going to kind of switch gears here to someone who used to be really elite and kind of tailed off towards the end of his career. Also just broke a record for most consecutive games played in a row. That's Keith Yandle. In his peak, that guy put up points for fun. He's kind of not been as good, but these offensive defensemen, they kind of tend to slow down, maybe because their game is really relying on speed and you lose that. Mm-hmm. But he broke a huge record. Like,
yeah, let's talk a little bit about that record. Honestly, when I first read the headline that he had broke the Iron Man streak, I didn't think it was impressive as it is. And then I did some research and it really blew my mind. So let me break it down a little bit. Yeah. This Iron Man streak hasn't been broken for 34 years. He has played 965 consecutive games.
That's crazy.
Starting from March 26, 2009. That is 14 seasons in a row with 4 different teams.
And no injuries. Or injuries probably, but playing through them, not major injuries.
Yeah, he's like, just to think about how crazy it is of the things that were happening in 2009, how different 2009 was from now.
Yeah, so hit us with a few like fun facts about 2009. We're going to age ourselves and all our listeners. It's going to tell us some stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about some things that happened when Keith Yandle began playing hockey. And by the way, I know it's obvious, but keep in mind he has not missed a game since now.
Yeah, since this time.
The top song on the Billboard Hot 100 was Right Round by Flo Rida.
Great song.
Remember the song TikTok by Kesha?
Yeah.
What we would bump every day going to elementary school?
Yeah.
That was in the top 5 as well. Global markets just began recovering from the Great Recession. Remember, the Great Recession is something that you learn about as an adult in university and go, that was so long ago, I don't even want to think about it. That's when he started playing.
Yeah,
this
just
streak.
2007 recession, not the 1930s, but
yes, obviously that's the Great Depression.
Oh, I'm stupid.
Somebody doesn't understand business as much as I would like them to.
I didn't take business. So.
Okay, so keep going. Crosby won his first cup in 2009.
Yeah, wow.
Put that into perspective.
He was 21.
Young kid. Instagram was over a year away from being made.
Wow.
And Barack Obama had just been sworn into presidency as the president of the United States of America, obviously.
Wow.
Yeah, safe to say that it was an absolutely different time when Keith Yandle began this streak.
Yeah, lots changed in, how many years is that?
14 seasons.
14 seasons.
So here's a question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Do you think this record can ever be broken ever again?
Yeah, our boy Phil Kessel is like 20 games back.
That's crazy too.
That guy is just so consistent. Honestly, as a Leafs fan who like didn't really like appreciate all the flack he took when he was here, I kind of hope he breaks it. Like, I mean, all respect to Keith Yandle, but like Phil has a special place in our hearts, right? So I hope he does. I don't know how many games Yandle has left. Like, I heard a lot of people saying that he was really only getting games now so he can break this streak because everyone knew how important it was to him. So I think if he maybe doesn't get a contract next year, or he's maybe playing less games because he's not like, people aren't pressured into playing him for the streak, I could see Phil passing him.
I mean, he's without a doubt the sixth option defensively for the Flyers right now.
And that's a bad team.
It is a bad team.
So that says something.
Yeah, and they have a lot of rookie defensemen too that might start to get some looks. So now that this streak is done, never know.
I would imagine that. Yeah, I mean, it's good for him that he broke it. Like, you know, it's something to be proud of. I just don't know how long it's gonna last, which is unfortunate for him. But
here's another question: assuming that Phil Kessel isn't in the picture and we're starting with a player fresh, the question is, can this record ever be broken? And I'm gonna give my opinion here and say I don't think so.
It'll be tough. Like, it's gonna take a lot to go almost 1,000 games without anything, especially now where like teams are a little more cautious about, like, you know, there's a little bit of load management in the NHL nowadays too.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised.
There's some crazy stats that I found online. Only 0.38% of all players since 1949 were able to play 6 full seasons of hockey. He's done 14 seasons. That's over double.
Crazy,
right? It just showed, like, even now, just how fast-paced and physical the game is, and especially with load management being a thing, especially for guys later on in their career, you have to wonder whether a guy, even if he's fantastic early on in his career and doesn't miss a game, whether when he gets 30, 35, if they start giving him time off for playoffs or whatnot.
For sure. Well, if you remember with Patrick Marleau, like he recently broke the all-time games played, like total number of games played, and then after that, he was pretty much out of the league. I think guys were just giving him the respect to break that record, and then everyone knew that he was kind of past it. I can kind of see that happening to Keith Yandle coming up. Maybe not this season, but next season, if he doesn't get a contract, your team signs him to like league min, he won't be playing every game.
Yeah, it just really blows my mind when you put this record into perspective. I mean, just over 5% of all NHL defensemen ever in the history of hockey have ever played more than 965 games, and he did that without missing one.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that, it kind of does sound as going to be untouchable. But we kind of did some research on our own before this to think of, okay, can we each come up with like 2 other NHL records that are kind of, we can consider them to be untouchable right now unless something crazy happens. So why don't you give us your 2 or your 1, and I'll give my 1 after.
Let's talk about the one that I know none of us have, but the obvious one. We'll talk about the elephant in the room, Gretzky's points. I mean, he's got 2,857 points. The next best is just over 1,900. The crazy stat that I'm sure everyone knows is that if you took all of his goals away, he would still have the record in points with just assists. He would be 42 ahead of Jagr if you took away all 894 goals.
Wow.
Absolutely insane. And I mean, going on to the record that I chose is that I'm going to stay with the man, Wayne Gretzky here.
Okay. He's got a bunch of them. Which one do you pick?
Oh, the one that blows my mind is that Wayne Gretzky had 3 consecutive 200-point seasons in his career. So throughout NHL history, there have only been 4 seasons in which a player has recorded over 200 points. Guess who the guy other than Wayne Gretzky was in those 4 seasons that did it?
To have a 200-point season?
So Wayne Gretzky did it 3 years in a row. Who was the guy that did it in the 4th season?
Gosh, I don't know. Could it have been? I know Gilmore got close. Is it Messier?
Here's the kicker. It was Wayne Gretzky again.
Oh,
Wayne Gretzky.
He just did it a year later.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster. I mean, when I think about why this record can't be broken is because no player since the 90s has had better than 130, 150 point season. I mean,
they were scoring like 10 goals a game between teams back then in the 80s. Like, there was just so high scoring. Yeah,
like names like Gretzky, Lemieux, Solane, LaFontaine come to mind. And I mean, the modern era isn't really decided. I'm talking about the modern era since I've started watching hockey. So since like the 2000s.
I'll never see that again.
Like, I mean, only one player has had over like 125 points, and that was Nikita Kucherov a few years ago.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Right, that season where he won the Hart objectively. The number of goals is going way down. We're just never going to see a guy put 200 up again.
I don't think so.
No, I remember when Crosby put up 121 in his rookie season or in his second season, everyone was going crazy because we hadn't seen that for so long.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think it was less than maybe like 7 years ago, I think Jamie Benn won the Art Ross with like 86 points. So like that was like there was no scoring, and now we're seeing an uptick in scoring though. Like McDavid was on pace for like 150 earlier in the year. I think he's like peeled off a bit because he's still a human.
Yeah, but just think about that. So we just said that McDavid is not human there, and he put up he was on pace for 150.
Oh, he's insane.
Assuming he did that, you would need 33% more points to beat that record of Gretzky putting 200 up in a season, and then you got to do it
three times in a row.
Like impossible.
Yeah. No, it's never happening again.
It's crazy. Okay, tell me yours.
Okay, so I have kind of a fun one. So I have the most points all time by a goalie. Like, what do you think it is? What do you think the number is? Then I'll tell you who has it.
Like goals and assists.
Points. In his career.
10?
No. So Tom Barrasso has 48.
48?
48. But you'd actually be surprised. There's a few guys under him that have like 46, 47, like Brodeur's there. But the next closest active goalie is Mike Smith. Mike Smith and Jonathan Quick both have 20. And they're towards the end of their career. So I don't think anybody's touching this. Because goalies, like back when Barrasso played in like the 80s and 90s, whatever, they were playing the puck way more.
Mm-hmm.
The game was a lot more like less structured. And it was so it might have been easier for him to like go behind the net, pick a pass out, or for him to leave the puck to somebody to go to end, because that happened more often back then. I just don't think it's going to happen. I thought it was kind of cool. 48 points. It was way more than I thought I was going to when I was researching.
So let me ask you a question. If I said you could play 6 seasons in the NHL on a second line, we'll call it the Leafs, you think you could put up 48 points in 6 seasons?
Me? Like Stefan?
Yeah.
No.
Why not?
I'm ass.
I just want to put into perspective how crazy it is for a for a goalie to put up 48 points.
Yeah, no, it's insane.
I think I could do it.
Yeah, maybe you can.
Put me beside Auston Matthews for like...
Maybe if I can play first line with like McDavid, I'll just stand in front of the net and like take a couple off my shin pads and let it go in.
You put up 48?
Maybe in 6 years. That's tough. Like I don't even have guys like tough guys that like someone like did oh my god, what was his name? Colton Orr.
Mm-hmm.
Did he put up 48 career points? Like probably, but like he was actually good at hockey.
That's crazy. 48 points. Wow. Good for him.
Yeah. Do we want one more, or do we want to just move on, keep it flowing? Because I have another one.
Yeah, give me one more. This is pretty fun.
A Leaf has this one.
Okay.
Actually, it's most career penalty minutes.
Oof.
Can you guess who? He's kind of recent. It might not be who you think of. Like a little past him.
It's not Ty Domi?
No. So Ty Domi's third. This guy played maybe like a decade before him, ish.
It's not Tucker.
Tucker, no. It's Dave Tiger Williams.
Okay.
And he has 3,971 penalty minutes.
I wonder how many games that is.
I don't know, but it's a lot. Like 4,000 divided by 60. Like I wonder how many games he spent in the penalty box. How much is it?
So he spent almost 67 games worth of...
Of course it's 67 as Leafs fans.
Wow.
That number finds its way back to us every time.
Don't do that to me.
That's pretty impressive. It's not even crazy. It's just impressive. Like how many guys you have to fight? How many 10-minute game like misconducts you have to get? Like an obscene amount.
Wow.
And Leafs fans of that day loved this guy. So
I mean, when we think about quote unquote goons of our time, I mean we think of Tom Wilson, who has about 1,200 penalty minutes in his career. I'm pretty sure. I remember reading that before. And I mean that's not even close. That's almost a quarter less. Sorry.
Yeah.
4 times less.
Yeah, it's not. There's no one. There's not an active player,
mm-hmm.
not in the top 25.
Yeah, I mean, especially that fighting isn't as big anymore.
Yeah, it's never gonna happen because like the game's just changed so much.
Yeah.
For the better, let's be honest. But
yeah,
no one's touching that.
Fighting is taken out. There's an instigating penalty now for fighting, and I mean, it's a lot harder to crack a lineup as a goon now. If a guy that just doesn't put up any points.
They don't have spots guaranteed like they used to.
Yeah, that'll never be broken.
Okay. Well, we talked about a couple of Leafs cult heroes and Domi and Tiger Williams. So let's just kind of head back to the Leafs.
Okay.
So we talked about how they kind of ran the Devils show for the second half of the first game, and then they wiped the floor with them the second game.
That was a fun game to watch.
But I want to actually talk a little bit about Peter Mrazek.
Okay.
So there's been a lot of talk about him, we want to keep Campbell. What's going to happen to him? We can't put aside $8 million+ to keep for 2 goalies.
Mm-hmm.
So is he gonna be a one and done? Are we gonna trade him, or what do you think the move will be with him? Like, what do you think they should do now? What do you think will happen?
That's a good question. I mean, there's been a lot of speculation amongst the Leafs media lately that Campbell hasn't had a good second half of the year compared to his first half.
Shaky, but
I mean, overall, 2.42 goals against average, 920 save percentage in his career. Great in the playoffs last year. He is clearly a bona fide number one goalie.
Yeah, I think he's proved that.
Yeah,
we got to keep him.
It's not even. Oh yeah, I think keeping him is out of the question. But now the question becomes is, what do you think he would get in the open market? And in my mind, when I'm thinking about comparables, I think Markstrom is a good comparison.
It is because he got signed when there was no cap movement
recently, and
at 6, right?
He's at 6. Yeah. So I'm gonna say Campbell wants about 6 or 7. When I looked up the Leafs' projected cap hit next year, they have a projected cap hit of about $74 million, and I know the cap is going up to $82.5, so they have some room. But when you put in that $7 million for Campbell, you just cannot afford the $3.8 million for Peter Mrazek.
No, I don't think you can, and it's a shame. But like, I think keeping Campbell and finding, I don't know if Joseph Woll's ready. He had an okay few games. He's maybe not ready to like be a backup or a guy who can play 30, but maybe they can find a guy for cheaper than whatever Marazzic makes and just sort of take a hit in those games if they need to. I think keeping Campbell is like the most important thing. It's not a knock on Marazzic. It's just the cap sucks.
Yeah, I mean, even when you think about it too, the Leafs are probably going to get someone at the deadline to make another push. And if to the extent that guy isn't a free agent next year, if he takes up more cap space, there's going to be no room. And I mean, I think this conversation would be a little bit more contentious if Peter Mrazek was a great backup goalie this year. But
he's been tough. He's had a couple of tough games, but he's been better recently. Like, he came into that Devils game, ended up getting the win.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the Devils. I mean,
the Devils aren't very good.
He's put up a .294 goals against average, a save percentage of just over 900 in 7 games. And remember, like, the 7 games he plays are usually on back-to-back nights against the worst team of the two. He's not playing the Rangers, Tampa Bay, Florida. This guy should be rocking a pretty high save percentage.
Well, what I will say is, they play 8 and 16 coming up, 8 games in 16 days after the All-Star break. Mm-hmm. We're going to really see if he has something to prove. So hopefully he's probably going to play at least 3, if not 4 of those games. They might split time. He's got a chance to sort of prove himself.
I think even if he proves himself to the greatest extent, I don't think the Leafs sign him back. Like, I mean, $4 million AAV.
Like, I don't mean prove himself to the Leafs. I mean just like prove himself in general. And then if he plays well, it's a plus for the Leafs, and maybe they can get something for him in the offseason, because I think he has trade value. Yeah,
I mean, he's not a free agent next year, so you can trade him.
I think Edmonton can use a goalie if they don't go get someone this year.
Is Peter Mrazek a bona fide starter?
Better than Mikko Koskinen and 55 million year old Mike Smith. Like, Mike Smith literally has one leg and he's playing for these guys. Like, they suck.
But is Edmonton looking for a guy that can be just better than that low bar that you just told me?
It's a start.
Yeah, but for $3.8 million, there's no cap space.
Mikko Koskinen makes 5.
Yeah, I mean,
Mike Smith makes like 2.5, I think. I think for like cost per save, he's better. Like, for performance, like, and they need to get rid of that Koskinen contract. But we're not even gonna get into that team. They're playing well now. I hate them.
I don't think they trade Mrazek at the deadline. I think if anything, it would be him. Yeah, you would keep him. But I mean, speaking of the deadline, I just mentioned that I think the Leafs are going to go out and get somebody. Mm-hmm. If you were Kyle Dubas, what kind of calls are you inquiring into closer to that deadline in March?
Probably like I was actually listening to, I might have been on the broadcast in one of the games, or just like I was reading something. I don't think you add on forward because they mesh so well right now.
Oh, I agree.
And like going out and getting a forward just because it's a big name doesn't always end up being productive.
Kind of like how it was last year with Nick Foligno.
Well, I think Foligno was actually a type of forward you go out and get if you need him, because he's not a superstar, but he's a good guy. If you just happen to get hurt, which is unfortunate
for a first-round draft pick.
Well, I mean, they didn't pay a first-round draft pick for a guy who was gonna break his back in the first game. Like, it's just unfortunate. But who I would target, I would probably target like maybe a depth defenseman on their right side, because Hall's been kind of shaky this year. Liljegren's good, but maybe when playoff time comes, his big stage might be too big. I don't know. But it's always good to have insurance. And Dermott's he's been kind of inconsistent, and I would kind of I feel a little better as a fan if we got some reassurance. Like, you see names like Josh Manson being thrown around, a guy who just like hits everything, is a bit of an ass, which is something you kind of need come playoff time. I wouldn't mind them going for a guy like him, not him per se, but something like that.
I think great minds think alike because
Okay.
I kind of thought the exact same thing you did. The Leafs definitely do not need a forward.
No,
We
I
have
don't
a
think so.
Vezina caliber goalie in net. I was also thinking a guy to round off the top 4, not on the first line because there's no room on the first line.
No,
And
we're good there.
because there's no room on the first line, names like Trichkin and Klimberg I don't even think are in the question.
No.
I think we're looking for a guy that's kind of quote unquote better than a Justin Hall, maybe an upgraded Justin Hall.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
What comes to mind for me is Mark Giordano.
Yeah, that's your boy.
That's all our boys. Come on.
Yeah.
Toronto boy. I mean, he's from here. There's a free agent next year. You might get to sign him back if he likes the culture. I mean, the Leafs need a gritty D, and in my mind, he's a little bit better than Justin Hall. I mean, he's tenacious. He
Probably a lot
finishes all
better,
his
yeah.
checks. Leadership. He was the captain of Calgary. He's the captain of Seattle again. He won the Norris 4 years ago. I know that was a longer way away, but in his last 3 years, he still puts up half a point a game. And I mean, if you take out the year that he's having now, because he plays on a god-awful team in Seattle.
They're really bad.
He's got a points per game at around 0.7.
Well, I think if you bring him in, he's going to be playing a reduced role anyway.
Mhm.
And then if you keep him on next year, if he's willing to take a discount to stay home, you can get him in like a couple million, even maybe less if he wants to really stay.
Yeah, and
I'm a fan of that name. Do you think Seattle's going to trade their first captain in franchise history, though?
so here's why I think Mark Giordano is the perfect option to go for. Seattle knows that next year Mark Giordano is not going to stay. I mean,
You don't think so?
no, I don't think so at all. He's a little bit of an older guy. He was been in Seattle for 1 year. If I were him, I'd try to go for a team that has a chance of winning the cup
Yeah.
if he continues playing. So in my mind, Seattle knows that he's gone next year. They're not even close to making the playoffs. They're going to try to get value for him if they can.
Mm-hmm.
And the Leafs have a lot of young defensemen to give up that if Giordano came
Oh.
here, they wouldn't make the top 6. And names like Liljegren or Dermott come to mind.
Dermott's... I don't know how much trade value Dermott has. He's not really like a young guy anymore. He's in his like mid-20s now.
Yeah, but mid-20s for a defenseman isn't
Yeah, but
especially
he
old.
hasn't really turned out to be what everyone thought he was. I would have no problem giving him up in a Giordano trade. I just think Seattle probably wants a little more. So
Wants a
Dermott
little
plus,
more.
Or I don't even know if I'd feel comfortable giving up Liljegren. I mean, you might have to depending on the guy you go out and get.
Mm-hmm.
But he's kind of showed glimpses of like promise this year. It seems like he can be a guy. He's still like what, 21, 22.
Yeah, but my worry is there's not enough room in this top 6. And if Dermott, it's either Dermott or Liljegren, right? I don't think there's room for both of them.
No, it's one of them. If
Right.
if everyone's healthy.
So why not make a trade for one of them this year because they're not going to be in the top 6 and go out and get a rental player that can help you win a cup. And that's
Yeah.
why I think Mark Giordano's perfect, because the guy that we want to give up is someone Seattle would want. And Mark Giordano as a leader, as a guy who can still put up points, as a defensive defenseman who finishes literally every check, is an absolute rock on the blue line. I think the trade works both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely be open to that if they want to take Dermott off our hands, and maybe like you probably have to give a pickup or a prospect to go with that.
I would give up a second-round pick for him.
Would you?
You wouldn't give Dermott in a second for a chance to get Mark Giordano to go for a cup run?
I don't know. A second's a lot, but we have to see what the market's looking like. Probably have a better idea in like a month or so. But I like the idea of Giordano coming.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think he's the best guy to go after. If I was Kyle Dubas, maybe if he gives me a job, I can.
I mean, Dubas has kind of on the trade market. He's been kind of like finessing some GMs around the league. Like he's had some good deals. I mean, he's had some busts too, like that last year one, but like that's out of his control. I think on the whole though, he's proved that he can find value in trades. So I have faith in him.
Yeah, you're starting to bring up a topic that really boils my blood when
Why is that?
a lot of... Okay, so here's what I'm saying. The argument I use to differentiate between a casual Leaf fan and a Leaf fan that understands hockey is by asking them the question, is Kyle Dubas a good manager?
Okay.
And
What do casual Leaf fans like to say?
casual Leaf fans like to say, oh, the Leafs have been bad for so long. We just got rid of the coach, clean house in the GM office. Kyle Dubas is a terrible manager. I want to know before I give my take what you think about Kyle Dubas.
I think he's a great GM.
Okay, why?
Because he just finds value. He finds value in like the spots you need to when you have 40 million tied up in 4 guys. So when he signed those contracts, he had to have known that he was going to have to find value in other places
Mhm.
because you need to fill like 20 other roster spots with half the cap. I think he's honestly done a great job. Like he's done. Look, even just look this season. He's gotten guys like Kasha, Kampf. Michael Bunting makes under $1 million.
I think Mikheyev is cheap too. No,
Mikheyev is cheap. He's a free agent this year. But just in general, Simmons and Spezza got them to stay. Like Spezza, maybe Dubas got lucky because Spezza and Simmons wanted to stay because they wanted to come home. They had interest in that. But he had to sit down and talk them through a plan that they were committed to be willing to take a discount to come in the first place. I think that's an often forgotten part about that too.
True. Kyle Dubas does definitely have home court advantage because it seems like 3/4 of the NHL played in the GTHL as a kid. So they want to come home later on in their career. Okay, but so going on to what I think first of all, the NHL is without a doubt the hardest league in pro sports to be a general manager, simply because it's really the only sport that I can think of that has a hard cap. Yeah. And so when I think about differentiating between good and bad GMs, there's two criteria that I'll usually use. Number one is the team that the general manager can field. I mean, the general manager can't play for the team. They can't coach the team. They can field the team. And number two is the way that Kyle Dubas, or manager in general, has drafted. Mm-hmm. Just thinking about what Kyle Dubas has put together, like you said, I mean, he's put a Rocket Richard winner on a team. Center who got drafted first overall, and John Tavares, who scored 50 goals last year, has leadership, has put up 100 points in his career. Mitch Marner with 100 points not too long ago. Willie, who's pretty much a bona fide 35-goal scorer on a good contract now. I don't care what anyone says. That contract it's
a great contract.
Very value for money. A great top six defensively and a Vezina caliber goalie. What more can he do? Do you want him to suit up and play first line center?
I think the guys who hate him would love to see him do that.
I just
I don't know. They people will always find issues. People will always find problems with someone they don't like to begin with.
It just blows my mind when people say Kyle Dubas can't manage. I mean, the team he has put together is unbelievable. And now looking at who he's drafted guys. I mean, the big names we know: Auston, Mitch, Willie, who are all stars. I mean, has Nylander been an all-star before?
No, but he's like
he's put up those numbers. True, and even other names that we don't hear as much: Nick Robertson, Sandin.
Yeah, Sandin was a good pick.
My boy Sean Dursey, who's playing.
That's your boy.
Yeah, who's like a bona fide second line defenseman. He's great. Liljegren. These are all NHL caliber players who have shown time and time again that they can do it. So Kyle Dubas can not only draft stars, he can draft depth players that can be traded for or can find their way into lineups. And his ability to go get value for the money deals proves that he's a great manager.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a question. Like, people want to move goalposts every time. Last year, 2 years ago, was, we need more grit. Okay, so he went out. Who did he get? He got Simmons 2 years ago. This year he got Nick Ricci. Ricci experiment didn't work. But why did it not work? Maybe because he's not that good at hockey. But people wanted him to go get muscle. He got the muscle.
Zach
He doesn't fit with our team.
Zach Bogosian, Jake Muzzin.
I miss Bogosian so much.
It just blows my mind when people say he's not a good manager. I think, honestly, he's one of the best general managers in the league. He has absolutely nothing else to prove. He's proven that he can make these deals and also go get guys without Lou. What more do you want from him?
Yeah, he can't give exorcisms. This team just has demons, so they got to figure it out themselves. But he's done everything in his power to give them a chance. And so, I hope this year they prove him right, so people can kind of shut their mouths.
Here's what I want. I want someone to tweet me with a credible argument that Kyle Dubas is not a top 5 GM in the league, and if that argument is credible, I will apologize on the next episode.
Okay,
but that's not happening.
No,
not happening.
Okay, let's move on. Henrik Lundqvist got his number retired last week.
Uncle Henrik.
Just one of those guys, like, growing up, like, he's just has this like aura about him. I think one of the best goalies, so you can safely say, in of the past 20 years. But, in 3 years he'll have a chance to make it the Hall of Fame. Do you think he's a first ballot? Makes it right away?
I don't think it's a question. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. What about you?
I think he makes it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about why.
Well, looking at I was actually surprised to see that he only won one Vezina. He felt like a guy who was always in the conversation. He had multiple top 5, top 3 votes. He placed top 5 and top 3 multiple times. He only won that one.
Yeah, I think. But I think he finished top 6 in Vezina voting 10 times in his career.
Yeah, that's just a testament. There's he played in
an era with Roberto Luongo, Price, Broder.
Yeah, lots of good goalies to pick from. He had a career .913 and at his peak he was playing at like a high 920s, 930s, which is pretty damn impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also something to be said just about like your reputation. Like when people look at you, or when your name's brought up, what do people think? Like he just had this aura about him of greatness. Didn't win a cup, unfortunately. Came really close. Came within one overtime, a goal. Like they lost in overtime to the Kings that year.
Tragic.
Right? So if he has a cup, people maybe like look at him a different way, because cups, for better or for worse, are like a currency when you're like trying to get into the Hall of Fame.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not an individual trophy, so it's circumstantial sometimes, but yeah, I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there's also, in my mind, a Hall of Famer needs to be someone who has a testament of longevity, and I think he's without a doubt done that. He played almost 900 games, and something that really blew my mind is he's the only goalie in NHL history to win at least 30 games in each of his first 7 NHL seasons.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think New York was great his whole career there.
They had ups and downs.
They did, and he's just been a great goalie his entire career. But so we both agree that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I think a little bit more of a contentious or debatable question is he the best goalie, or, I'll even throw in the word player, to not win a cup in the last 20 years?
Best player to not win a cup is like a difficult one, because a lot of people bring names up like Marcel Dion. Like we just weren't alive to watch these guys.
Let's restrict it to like the last 20 years. So
the first names that come to mind in terms of players to not win a cup is like Jumbo Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Thornton. I would love to see him win a cup. Like it's just so hard to compare like players and goalies, but I think there's an argument to be had there. Like Jumbo Joe's probably the best skater to not win a cup. Like
True. We can restrict it to only goalies, and in my mind, when I think about it, the goalies to not win a cup in the last 20 years, or since like we've started watching, are Roberto Luongo, Henrik Lundqvist, Ryan Miller. I don't think Ryan Miller won a cup. Even Mika Kiprusoff, but I mean the only guy that and Curtis Joseph. Now that I think about it, but now that I think about it, the only guy that really is in the same debate with Lundqvist, in my opinion, is Roberto Luongo.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you look at Luongo's career, he won Olympic gold twice with Canada, right? International accolades.
No Vezina though.
No Vezina, which is a big thing.
It's a big thing.
He also, I think his save percentage, his goals against, was pretty similar to Luongo.
He had a career 919, so it's a bit better than Lundqvist.
And a goals against of just over like 2.5. I mean, those numbers are pretty similar. One thing that is a knock against Roberto Luongo, or correct me if I'm wrong, is did he ever have any deep playoff runs in his career?
Yeah, when they went to the finals against Boston, that was their deep run
in Game 7. Yeah,
like he should have a cup, and Lundqvist was right there.
Okay, so they've both had at least one deep playoff run in their career. They're pretty similar with respect to goals against and save percentage. Would you consider international accolades when thinking about the better goalie?
I don't know if it factors into skill, but it factors into Hall of Fame decisions for sure.
True.
I think like let's not get it twisted. They're both getting in, but I don't know. There's definitely a debate to be had. I think Lundqvist won a world championship once or twice though. So
he did.
I mean, that's not Olympics, but
he did.
It's still international.
There was a lot of debate as to whether Luongo should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer or not. I wonder if the same debates will come out about Henrik Lundqvist.
Maybe because they're not decorated enough, but I don't love that argument.
I don't love it either. In my mind, I think Roberto Luongo edges him out just a little bit. That might be a Canadian bias there.
Maybe.
It's close. It's closer than people think.
Yeah. It's definitely like really, really close. They're both really good. I don't know who I would pick. Like I might just lean on like I don't know. When I watched Henrik play as a kid, like I'm biased just about the nostalgia. Like just some of the saves he made, he was a little bit unorthodox. Like deep in his net, he was good for like a kicking out his leg when he made a save, being a little extra flashy than Luongo was. So like that holds like a place in like my like memory. So I don't know. Like I said, that aura factor about him. Like when I think of Bobby Lou, I don't think about like he didn't resonate with me like Henrik did. But that's personal. So that's not really like good debate material. I'm just saying like personally, like I just thought of Henrik as in a different way than I thought about Luongo.
Well, I mean, you are a goalie, so I'll take your word for it.
But that doesn't mean much, but yeah.
Yeah, I think without a doubt Henrik Lundqvist is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Okay. Well, we have Jack Eichel coming back soon.
Ooh,
Vegas. Pretty exciting. Like really good for him to come back. Like happy that he's healthy, because there was a period of time where people were thinking, gosh, this guy's never going to get his surgery. How long is it going to take for him to come back? Like, you just sort of felt for him on a human level. Now that he's coming back, Vegas has problems.
A lot of problems in the cap space.
A lot of problems. Like, what are they going to do? I think they have $17 million. No more. Did Pacioretty come back yet?
I think he just came back.
He did. Okay, so they have $15 million between Martinez and Eichel to fit under their cap.
More.
And they are, how far over or under the cap are they? They have maybe $5 million left right now.
Oh yeah, both of those guys cannot come back.
Yeah, not even Eichel can come back now. Maybe Martinez can.
Yes,
but not both.
No, and even next year they're projected to be way over the cap hit too. And so when talking about a couple things that Vegas can do, I mean, there are sketchy things Vegas can do.
Oh yeah,
and
they
then
can milk the system like. Yeah. They can do it. They can pull a Tampa, but they've been pretty like positive that they've said on multiple occasions on the record that like Jack Eichel will play this year, but that doesn't mean anything if push comes to shove.
I mean, if anything, they're already pulling a Kucherov Tampa with Alec Martinez.
I'm
a little bit biased because I have him in fantasy and I keep up to date with him a lot, especially on Twitter. Word around the street from a lot of beat writers is that he's been ready to go for a really long time. He traveled with them on their last road trip, which was about 5 or 6 games, was projected to come into the lineup in the first game, didn't make an appearance. Didn't make an appearance at all. And so I wonder if Vegas decides to milk the system as long as they can and not play Eichel or not play Martinez until they can go out and make a trade, because inevitably they're going to have to make a trade.
Yeah, they have to, which is like weird to say. They got to trade away a decent player, and they're a team that's contending. Like, I wonder how long they can keep Eichel out. Like, maybe they can like say there was a flare up on his injury and keep him out for another few months. I don't know. That wouldn't be fair to him, but I guess you got to do what you got to do. I don't know. I
mean, the one advantage they have is they play in the worst division in hockey right now. That the Pacific looked good at first, and now every team is regressed.
They're coming back to life, those Canadian teams, but like in general, it's definitely the worst division.
Yeah, they're going to win that division with ease. So if I was the GM putting on my Golden Knights cap or helmet, I guess, what I would do is I would keep Eichel and Martinez out as long as you can until you can make a trade. And I mean, that's what they're going to have to do. And in my mind, I wouldn't trade a piece defensively, because defensively they're really solid. They got 3 or 4 quality defensemen in Pietrangelo and Martinez and Theodore. Whitecloud is good. McNabb is good. I mean, the team
they're just solid.
Top to 6 is solid. You're not going to trade anyone on the goalie side. So, I mean, I think you're going to have to trade a depth player on the second or third line. And I mean, when you look at it, there are about 3 or 4 good players on that team that make like $5.5 million.
Yeah. Who's like the first name that comes to mind for you? Because I have one.
Okay, just to throw the names out there. Carlson, Smith, Marchessault, and Dadonov all make about $5 to $6 million a year. One of those guys has to go. Actually, probably 2 of them have to go.
Yeah, maybe it might have to be 2 of them, because they got to find $10 million somehow.
Yeah, so when I rank those players best to worst right now, Riley Smith is having one of the best years of his career. Marchessault is still really good. Carlson is taking a bit of a hit, and center-wise, they have a lot of depth. So I think that when you think about a guy that you can get rid of, the goal is obviously to trade a player with retaining as little cap space as possible to free up that cap space. They can't retain at all. So you got to trade a guy with good value, or you got to get absolutely fleeced by giving away draft picks. And I don't know if Vegas has that many draft picks left to give, because they've sold the farm for Stone, for Pacioretty, for Eichel. They're pretty depleted.
Yeah, I think they have some picks, but like, you don't want to trade all your picks.
No, for sure.
I don't know. The name that comes to mind for me is like Dadonov.
Really?
Because he's only at half. He's had a half a point a game, which like isn't great. It's not bad either. It's just like you're a 40-point player, which is respectable, but I would trade him. Like,
you think that's worth $5 million in the NHL right now?
No.
So you think a team would want that without retaining any salary?
No, but beggars can't be choosers. Like, I think they're gonna have to take a hit on a trade. Like, would you really want to trade a guy like Riley Smith, who's really good, and you're trying to win a cup this year?
I agree, but if I'm the GM, I'm also thinking about alleviating cap space as much as I can and not retaining any salary.
I don't think you'd retain salary if you sweeten the deal for Dadonov. And also, like, this Vegas team has shown that they don't care. Like, they will do whatever they have to do to improve their team and win. Like, they sold the farm, they gave draft picks away, they traded really good players to get Eichel. Like, they're a risk. They take risks and they pay off most of the time. So
yeah, in my mind, when Eichel comes back, Karlsson's going to see a severe reduction in minutes.
He'll probably be bumped down to what, the third line?
The third line. He's a third line center.
$5 million. That's too much in this league.
You cannot pay a player $5 million. That's the reason why the Leafs got rid of Kadri. You just cannot afford a third line center at $5 million. So the name that comes to mind is Karlsson for me. I think he still has some value.
You think so?
Yeah.
He makes what, 5.75, I think, though.
5.75, yeah. I think if you give him up with like a second or probably not a second, like a third round pick, I think you could take a team to not retain any salary, or if you want to be sure that you don't retain any salary, a guy like Jonathan Marchessault comes to mind, but there's no way they trade him.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
Extremely steady. I think you'd want to trade a guy that doesn't play power play 1 or power play 2. I don't even know if Karlsson's going to crack the power play when Eichel comes back.
Penalty kill, but you can find guys.
Yeah, you can find guys. They're an extremely deep team. So yeah, to answer your question, I think Karlsson goes because I wouldn't, if I was Vegas, I wouldn't want to get absolutely fleeced on draft picks. But I mean, from your perspective, you're correct. If that they're going for it now and the window's open, maybe you keep as many players as you can.
Well, the good thing though, or maybe not, if they can find a way to keep a Martinez or an Eichel out the whole rest of the regular season by like doing some sneaky stuff that we've seen happen before. The good thing though is that Matthias Janmark makes $2 million. Dadonov, like we said, makes 5, and Braden McNabb makes just over 2. They all come off the books next year as free agents. Mm-hmm. So if they can somehow get through this season, they can let those guys walk, and then they can basically just plop Eichel into their team, and then they're set. So and you're losing 3 players. You have to find a way to replace them, but you can replace them for cheaper when you have a guy like Eichel coming in. So I think
a lot of good things have to happen, is what you're telling me.
Well, a lot of sneaky stuff has to happen for them to avoid making a trade now and then letting these 3 guys walk in the offseason. That's like definitely in an ideal world what they will do. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if circumstance will allow them to. Like if Eichel's coming back to play, something's going to happen. So
when Kucherov was kept out as long as he was and magically came back for the first game of the playoffs,
can definitely get away with it.
I just wonder how the NHL patrols that. Like I wonder what is stopping them from keeping Martinez out all year or Eichel out all year.
If he's not medically cleared to play, like the NHL is not gonna, they can't mess with like a medical procedure or like what the doctor says. Like I know like they can probably be like this medical team might be like being a little extra precautious, mm-hmm. let's say, but I think there's only so far they can go when it comes to like health matters like this.
You think there's any doctors in Vegas that might be down to help the Golden Knights win a championship?
I think maybe the doctor that works for the team would have an interest in that.
Yeah, I can.
Not doing anything unethical. They're just playing the system, and like kudos to them for finding holes. I mean, the NHL restricts these teams. They gotta find ways to be flexible.
That's true, especially in a strict cap as it is.
Yeah, like people were going after Tampa saying, oh, they were $20 million over the cap. Well, it's like if the league doesn't want to raise the cap and be on par with other leagues and let teams spend their money, the teams are going to find ways to spend their money and be shady in the process. I don't think you can hate on the team. You got to hate on the system.
There's a lot of funny things with that hatred about being 17 million over the cap. Number one, which is pretty funny, is that back before that rule was put into place, no team except one bargained against that rule. Do you know who that team was that didn't want that rule to be put in place?
Probably like Arizona or something.
The Tampa Bay Lightning.
Really?
The Tampa Bay Lightning were the only team, to my knowledge, I remember reading this on Twitter, that were very against putting that.
What they did.
Against putting in that rule where you could bring guys back in the playoffs if they were on LTIR without adding to the cap.
Funny how that works.
Very funny how that works. Number two is that there were a lot of teams before Tampa and after the rule was put into place who also exploited that rule.
For sure.
Except Tampa exploited it to probably the largest degree, and that's why that they were reprimanded by the media as much as they were.
Well, yeah, like the Leafs do it every year. They get these, like they had it for a while where they have these guys who are never going to play again, but they just throw them in LTIRs for cap relief. It happens. But they did it with a star who came back to score a point a game in the playoffs and raise a cup. So like all those factors made it seem a little bit more like extra than it's been in other cases. But
true,
it's like they're playing the game. Like if the league doesn't want that to happen, they got to change the rules or raise the cap. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening, and good on teams for finding these holes. Like I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess Nikita Kucherov coming shirtless to that post-game conference, being absolutely so happy about it and wearing that shirt, or putting that shirt on after you remember saying 17 million over the cap. I don't think that helped a lot.
You got to lean into it.
Yeah, I respect it.
Okay. Well, let's we're gonna stop with the hockey talk, I guess, like, in terms of like news. We're gonna move on to our fantasy face-off. Is that all right?
I'm down.
Okay. So we explained the kind of the gist of the game last week, but just to reiterate, we're each gonna pick a player from a points league and a bangers league, someone who's less than 35% rostered on Yahoo, just like for a waiver wire pickup if you need a guy. And yeah, well, hopefully our advice turns out helping you guys, or else we're gonna look like fools. But
hey, I mean, Blake Coleman scored.
Blake Coleman actually went off. My guy sucked from last week. I'm not even gonna mention their name so nobody can out me. But
you know what's funny and ironic is that all I do is complain about frickin' fantasy, but I'm helping all of our followers do well at the detriment to myself.
You're a charitable man.
Yeah, I'm just for the boys, I guess. I don't know what to say. Okay, so you start off. Give me your bangers league pick for this week.
My bangers league pick is Luke Coonan or Coonan. I don't know how you say his name, but he's on the Predators.
Okay.
I think he's good for a bangers league because he averages over 3 hits a game, which is solid. Averages about 0.45 points per game. So he's like a 40-point player who hits 3 times a game. He's been pretty consistent all year. And he can also play all 3 forward positions. So for that versatility, like I think he's a pretty good shout, and he's not owned very much. So if you're in a bangers league with a lot of teams, it might be a good option if he's available. Sorry.
I like that pick. The Nashville has been rolling all year.
They've been way better than I thought.
I think they'll continue it, and they've been notoriously gritty.
Yeah, that's been their identity this year with a guy like Tanner Ginot.
Tanner Ginot destroys me in fantasy every week.
Lives in our nightmares.
Want me to give my bangers?
Yeah, go bangers.
Okay, so I got a homegrown hero, plays on the first line.
Oh wow!
Beside our boy Auston Matthews, goes by the name of Michael Bunting. First and foremost, plays on a stud line. I mean, he scoops all of Auston Matthews' assists. He's been scoring a lot lately. 4 goals in his last 3, clearly on a run. He's plus almost every game that he plays.
True,
because
that matters in some leagues. Yeah.
Right, especially on the Leafs. Usually the line that gets matched up against top lines is the second line with Tavares and Marner. So he doesn't get scored on as much. I mean, he'll get you 2 to 3 hits and blocks a game. I mean, especially next week, they play Calgary once. I think the Leafs play Vancouver as well, who are both struggling. So look for him to get you a bunch of points.
Yeah, that's a solid pick.
The only problem is he doesn't play on the power play, but that's why I put him in our bangers league and not for the points league.
Yeah. Okay. Should I have my points guy?
Go for it.
Okay, so my points league is a rookie. Just got called up like a couple weeks ago. Matt Boldy from the Wild. He's been really, really good. He seems to like he can do it all. He has 5 points in his last 5, and because Foligno's out for a little bit, he's getting a shot in the top 6 with Fiala. So I think he's a good option short term. But I think he's also just going to be a guy who sticks around on this team and kind of is going to be here for the foreseeable future. He's a really, really, really good young player. I saw like The Athletic, for those who subscribe, they have like these hockey cards, and it shows like what percentile all these players are in for offense, defense, all that stuff. He's touching the top 10 percentile on like all these offensive categories. So I think there's a lot of promise. Small sample size, granted, but if he can keep it up, he's going to be a really good keep for you guys. Especially in keeper leagues, if you can keep a rookie maybe for free. I know some leagues work like that. Our league works like that. If you want to take a flyer on a rookie and you need some points this year, grab him.
I like that pick. I'll move on to mine now. I'm looking at a guy who plays on the Buffalo Sabres, having a breakout season for him that goes by the name of Taige Thompson. I'm gonna be honest. I would have chosen Leafs legend Mason Marchment this week, but
crazy Mason Marchment this week he's having.
Yeah, he's 6 goals and 6 assists in his last 5. But I mean, Florida doesn't play for 2 weeks. I think they got 1 game in the next 15. So that's the reason why I didn't pick him. Taige Thompson has 4 assists in his last 5, 2 goals in that stretch. Puts up 3 to 5 shots a game. So here's the only problem is he's virtually minus every game that he plays because he plays on Buffalo. So if your league doesn't weigh plus minus too heavily, I think that's a good pick. I also, for you guys, try to choose waiver wire pickups within a week. So I'm thinking 3 games next week: Columbus, Montreal, the struggling New York Islanders.
3 bad teams.
3 bad teams. He plays first power play too. I think he's going to rack up points.
They've got to win 1 or 2 of those games. Yeah. So like even next week, he'd be a really good shout.
Even if they don't, I mean, he's going to a lot of power play time. Yeah. He's on a roll. Why not?
I like that. So for summary, our points guys are Matt Boldy and
Taige Thompson.
And then bangers, I have Luke Coonan or Coonan. I'm not sure how you say his name. And
I got Michael Bunting.
We'll
see who
takes. Hero Bunting.
We'll see who takes the week. Okay.
What's next?
Next is my favorite part. going on to the trivia segment. So
Trivia, okay, let's do this.
we explained it last week, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but we're going to change it up a little bit this week. I'm just going to give you two different players. I'm going to ask you to choose which player has more of a certain accolade. So, for example, I'll say which player has more goals.
Okay.
If you're right, you'll get a point. And if you can tell me how many more how many goals that player had, I'll give you an extra point.
Is this career?
Some of them are, but some of them you can get.
Will you tell me?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So let's see what you can do. Anybody following us along on Spotify or watching this clip on Twitter possibly, feel free to comment down below. Send us a tweet
see if you can beat me
at UFR Podcast and see if you can beat Steph for the second week in a row. But you did pretty well last week.
I did okay.
Yeah. So let's see what you got. So this is in line with our debate at the start of the episode. Who has more goals in their career, Auston Matthews and Leon Draisaitl?
Wow. I think, well, because you mentioned the idea that Draisaitl only had a few really high goal scoring seasons, like he's been good his whole career, but he only like recently started scoring a lot of goals. I'm going to say Matthews. I feel like the margin's probably tight because Draisaitl has that extra year. I'm going to, for consistency with my argument and the fact that I think it's right, I'm going to go Matthews.
So you seem to go all in on that explanation, and I'm sorry you lost the pot.
How close is it?
Auston Matthews has 228 career goals. Leon Draisaitl has, take the guess. You can see if you can get the extra point.
Matthews at 228. I want to say Draisaitl has like 251 or something.
230. It's so close.
Oh my god.
It is so close.
It's two. Is it two?
2 goals. Yeah,
That's
and Auston Matthews has
crazy.
played a full less year, so I mean,
better goal scorer. Yeah, I said it.
Better goal scorer, better player. Okay, so 0 for 1. Let's I think you can get this one.
Okay.
But I'm putting my faith in you here. Who has more Stanley Cups in their career?
Ooh.
Sidney Crosby
Yeah.
or Chris Kunitz?
Kunitz. I think Kunitz has 4 or 5. Crosby has 3.
Okay, you would
Kunitz has 5.
Okay, so you would be correct on Kunitz, but Kunitz has 4
4
total cups. He won all 3 with Crosby, and then he won another with Anaheim earlier on in his career.
Oh my! I thought he won one of those with. He was retired by the time the Tampa won because
he
he was on Tampa for a bit. Okay.
Never won with Tampa. So you're 2 for 4 right now. I mean that's really good. It's very tough to get the second 2 points this week. Here's another question for you: who has more career Vezinas? Number 1, Dominik Hasek. Number 2, Martin Brodeur.
Oh my gosh!
Think about it for a little bit.
Man, Hasek's probably like the best goalie of all time. Honestly, I'll say it here.
Really?
Yeah,
Better than
it's
Patrick
a bit of
Roy?
a hot take. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I think so.
We can save
But
that for another episode.
Yeah, we can talk about that later. How many Vezinas did he win, though? I don't know. Brodeur probably won a bunch. I'm going to go...
It's a tough one.
I want to go Hasek. And I feel like this is going to... I'm second guessing myself. I'm going to say Brodeur, but I feel like I'm wrong, but I'm going to say Brodeur.
Man, what do they teach you in middle school? They teach you 80% of the time your first answer is the correct one. Dominik Hasek is the answer. Take a guess. How many?
I don't know, like 6 maybe?
6. There you go. So you got a point.
Okay, wow.
Martin Brodeur has 4.
Jesus.
I'm very interested to know that take. So maybe next episode you can start it off why Dominik Hasek is better than Patrick Roy. Little sneak peek for episode 3 upon further review. Okay, so the penultimate question will be, who has more penalty minutes in their career?
Okay.
This one's virtually impossible to guess, so I'll give you 2 points if you can get the right choice. Tom Wilson or Sean Avery?
Whoa. Sean Avery was such a prick in his day.
Okay.
But I don't know how many games he played. Like, he didn't play for that long. He played a few seasons, but like after that, he was kind of nowhere to be found.
Tom Wilson's been an animal his whole career too, but
Has been.
Sean Avery's identity is penalty.
Yeah, that he did live in the penalty box for those years that he played. Oh man. I got to take a guess here. I'm getting rinsed in this trivia game today.
5 seconds left on the clock.
God. Sean Avery.
There you go.
Yeah?
You took one. Sean Avery. Can you take a guess at how many penalty minutes he's had in his career? I mean, you can use your...
I'm going to say...
You can use your record as a gestalt. You said the highest ever is what, 4,000?
It's like almost 4,000.
So what do you think?
Will you tell me how many Tom Wilson has?
Tom Wilson has 1,200.
1,200. I'm gonna say Avery has like 1,450.
Very close, 1530.
Okay,
It's a lot of
that's
penalty
a lot
minutes.
of penalty minutes. Holy smokes!
Okay, and so here is the last question of the day before we wrap up. We'll see if you can get this one. This one's kind of tough. So, who out of these two guys has been seen wilding out more at a Panthers game? Is the answer
Oh boy,
Kodak Black?
yeah.
Or legitimately any other fan to ever go to a Panthers game, which might actually only be like 2 or 3 fans ever?
Who's had more fun? I don't know if you can have more fun at a Panthers game.
Yeah, and we'll even
than
restrict this.
Kodak Black.
We'll even restrict this to being inside of a press box.
Inside of a press box. Well, I mean, Florida only gets about 3,000 fans. I don't know how many of them sit in these press boxes. I want to say that Kodak Black has had the most fun, not only of Panthers fans, but like maybe any NHL fan like ever.
Maybe any sports fan ever.
Yeah, he had a time, and he got his own box to do it.
Yeah.
And the best part about that night was the GM and like all like the management team of the Panthers were right next door watching him go to work.
So for anybody who doesn't know, just honestly go on Google and just Google Kodak Black at a Panthers game. You'll find out what we're talking about. Replay this clip and you'll start dying.
Most exciting thing to ever happen to the Panthers game.
The funniest thing is that the NHL knows that nobody goes to watch Panthers games, so they promoted the crap out of him going to that game. And after he was seen doing what he was doing, the NHL had to progressively delete every Instagram, Twitter post that they posted. And it was absolutely hilarious because the memes on the comments were just absolutely unbelievable, ranging from calling Kodak Black to like a Hall of Famer, ranging him to saying he's like one of the best players of all time. It was just hilarious.
What do you think went through Gary Bettman's head when his assistant showed him that video? Because he's seen it. For sure, he's seen it.
You think Gary Bettman knew what he was doing? Has Gary Bettman ever had fun in his life?
I think Gary Bettman is a wild man. He's definitely had some fun in his time. But honestly, I kind of like that Kodak, for the fans, kind of stuck it to Gary because he had to take down his promotions. So good on Kodak.
I respect it.
He had fun for himself and he had fun for the fans. So
that's funny.
Good on him.
Okay, I think before we finish, a lot of feedback that we got on the first episode, which we really appreciate. Anyone who comments, DMs us, they wanted to know a little bit more about us.
Ooh, okay.
So before we finish off this episode, everybody knows our names. I'm Ange. You're Steph.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about what we do and why we wanted to start this podcast. So first, tell all of our followers what you're currently doing in your life.
What am I currently doing in my life? Okay, so I'm a student. I'm still in school. I'm doing my master's at U of T.
Mm-hmm.
I study concussions, which is kind of topical. I'd like to continue doing that stuff. I'm like pretty passionate about head injuries, and like one day if we talk about CTE, I'll kind of get on my soapbox there. There's been some news recently regarding that, but when it comes up, we can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's go to you before we talk about why we started it. That way we can wrap it up nicely.
Yeah. So my name is Angelo, like we said before. Me, Steph, and our amazing producer Christian Cossidente all met at a nice small high school that goes by the name of Chaminade College School. If anyone goes there, shout that out. So we've been best friends for a really long time. What I do is I'm currently a first year medical student at U of T. So when I am not a big deal, when I'm not doing this podcast, all I'm doing is studying. But I also have a passion for sports medicine. That's something that I've been really thinking about. So this really goes in line with what I love to do away from school. I love hockey. You love hockey. One of the reasons that we started this podcast is because all we used to do on FaceTime was argue about sports. Yeah. So one day we kind of thought, why not just put this on a podcast and let the world hear it, see where it goes?
Yeah, it's more productive this way. At least we have somewhere to go back and look. Now when I can prove Andrew right about an argument that I had, I can go back and have proof for it. So
I don't know. I mean, I'm 1-0 in fantasy Faceoff this week with Blake Coleman. So
that's true.
We'll say that. I mean, so me personally, and I'm sure Steph and Christian can attest to that, is that one of our passions in life is just learning, growing, meeting new people. And we thought that the podcast is a great way to do all three of those things. We really, really want to hear from people. Just reach out to us, tweet us. Yeah. If you send us like a take that you have and we agree or disagree with it, if it's a great take, we'll talk about it on the pod.
For sure. And tell us a little bit about yourselves too.
Yeah, why not? The goal here is to have fun, build a community, and to meet new people, and that's what we hope that upon further review can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that brings us to an end of episode 2. Any last final words you want to say?
Matthews is better than Draisaitl. How about we end it with that?
Yeah, Oilers fans. That's
sorry, Oilers fans. I'm not sorry, actually.
Take that one to the bank.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.